Dear ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, I'm very honored to welcome each and every one of you tonight here in the Austrian Hospice. For the last 205 days, we did not have many occasions, many good reasons to celebrate. But tonight it was important to us, to the Austrian Hospice, in particular to Father Markus, to celebrate his 20th anniversary as a rector of the house in a simple yet meaningful manner. We decided to do so with a small panel discussion and keynote speech to focuses on the essence of the meaning of pilgrim houses and the differences and things in common with other regular hotel businesses. After these discussions, we will cordially invite you to a small buffet reception on the ground floor, and after the buffet, a nice concert with classical music is awaiting you. I would like to invite Father Markus for his keynote speech.
I've never heard before my guest house manager calling me Father Markus. Your Excellencies, distinguished friends, the first 3 days are free. Only after that do you have to cover your own expenses. This is how our Pilgrim-Hospiz advertised itself at its founding. Pilgrims from the Austro-Hungarian lands had the right to accommodation. The costs incurred were paid for by donations from their dioceses in the Crown lands. Talking about Crown lands. This was a simple matter in the first few years after we opened in 1863, when a comparatively small number of people embarked on a journey to the Holy City. The rectors of the time divided their fiscal year into autumn and Easter caravans. The rest of the time they devoted themselves to their own studies and research into the land of the Bible. I would wish to. Only in 1881 did annual overnight stays exceed the 200 mark. The second half of the 19th century brought a significant increase in the number of guests thanks to increased travel opportunities and improved transport routes. This coincided with the first expressions of displeasure on the part of my predecessors, who expressed their dissatisfaction in our house chronicles. Not all the guests who showed up were deemed by former rectors to be pious pilgrims to the holy places. Were some of these pleasure seekers actually exploiting our offer of free overnight stays to satisfy their cultural curiosity rather than fulfill their spiritual needs? Well, what distinguishes a pilgrim from a tourist? Is every visitor to Jerusalem basically a pilgrim anyway, since everything there is to see here revolves around the holy sites of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam? Let's face it, no one comes to this city for a wellness vacation. Or have you seen? Although official statistics record which regions a traveler visits, their analysis is of course not limited to Jerusalem. We see nowadays comparatively few Muslim pilgrims, although they are in fact required to make a pilgrimage to Mecca and Medina. Many potential visitors are currently giving Jerusalem a wide berth for political reasons. Devout Jews have been making a pilgrimage to Jerusalem since biblical times, albeit to mark the established pilgrimage festivals of Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot. A visit to Jerusalem at other times is by definition not a pilgrimage to the holy city, but rather a visit. For Christians, however, this is the city of Jesus. Even though Lent and Easter see the arrival of many groups of pilgrims, pilgrimage to Jerusalem is not limited to these festivals. Any visit to the city out of religious motivation can become a pilgrimage indeed. In our time, it is more difficult than it was for my predecessors to distinguish a tourist from a pilgrim. The tourist also feels longing for certain places and joy when he finally gets to see them. It is merely the content of the place that is defined differently. Where the focus of interest for the pilgrim is Jesus or a saint, for the non-religiously motivated visitor, it may be a famous musician or a figure from contemporary history, whose home or workplace they want to see up close in order to feel a sense of intimacy with them. A first crucial difference lies in what defines a place and gives it its purpose. In the Christian world, there are a whole range of traditional pilgrimage sites, with Jerusalem being the first biblically attested and most revered address. Nobody would think of including in such a list Michael Jackson's Neverland Ranch or Ground Zero in New York, although flowers are laid and prayers said there too. And for many visitors, these sites are imbued with a spiritual character indeed. For tourists, the journey is a necessary but not in itself significant first step towards their destination. For pilgrims on foot, however, the journey is in itself the goal, insofar as this physical exertion prepares them for their arrival at the place of longing. They leave their everyday lives in order to find themselves in the course of the pilgrimage, purified and rich in experience by the time they reach their destination. A separate branch of literature has developed in recent decades on the spiritual dimensions of this kind of transformative travels. A pilgrimage often involves an experience of community and solidarity, either because you set off together as a group, know and trust each other, and engage in discussions of faith and shared church services, or because when you reach your destination, you engage in discussions there with the local church. It is certainly possible to go on a wonderful pilgrimage alone, but let's do the cost check. An all-inclusive holiday consists of participants who until that point were strangers, who do not share the same worldview or values, and who find themselves encouraged to pray together only if the coach they are traveling in takes a corner too ambitiously, or if their plane suddenly encounters turbulence. A tourist may also be looking for personal and social transformation through the experience the trip affords him. It may change him, enrich him, give his life a new direction. This is to say, the conception of pilgrimages has changed in our days. No longer is there just the classic variant of a trip that the parish promotes and that aims for the religious socialization of the individual and the group. A person embarking on a pilgrimage today does not consider himself obliged to do so by church stricture, but is rather looking for an individual existential approach to faith, not though to religion as an institutionally constituted structure. Such people are seeking spiritual well-being and mental peace, self-knowledge and enlightenment, knowledge and social relationships. The outcome of such a search is highly individual and not based on dogmatic guidelines, compliance with which no one could verify anyway. Religious tourism today takes different forms. It could be a traditional pilgrimage, a missionary journey, faith-based events and gatherings, also of charismatic nature in the appropriate locations. The participant is involved and motivated to participate in a variety of ways. The reward is the feeling of emotional connection and belonging, either to the place of longing or to a group of like-minded people, ideally both. The time factor plays an important role here. While we imagine a tourist rushing from one place to the other in order to stick to his busy itinerary, the pilgrim stays in a single place for an indefinite period of time because he hopes to find peace there, to find himself and his innermost calling. A pilgrim identifies with his place of longing and appropriates it, while a tourist ticks it off as one element in a more comprehensive package he has paid for and he wants to see. A pilgrim should return home strengthened and refreshed. A tourist usually needs a vacation afterwards. What does all that mean specifically regarding pilgrimages? There are two ways of looking at the relationships between pilgrims and tourists. As we have seen, they have a lot in common. Both want to visit significant, often spiritual places. But there are a few things that differentiate them. A tourist would never emphasize his being a tourist in and of itself. But a pilgrim recognizes in this description the very purpose of his journey. He identifies himself as such and connects with other pilgrims he meets at his place of longing. For the tourism industry, however, pilgrims are also tourists insofar as they want their needs to be taken into account. For example, in respect to the development of destinations and also in terms of hotels and gastronomy. The first point is the planning of such a journey. Pilgrim groups, motivated and accompanied by a local priest or charismatic personality, tend to be more structured in terms of itinerary and daily routine. They focus on a certain added value to be attained by their journey that takes them into a sacred site or personality, perhaps to fulfill or to renew a promise or to fulfill a religious need. The individual sites, the individual locations to be seen are often determined long in advance. A list of the most important places to visit in the Holy Land reads as follows. Everybody knows it: Bethlehem, Jerusalem, Nazareth, the Sea of Galilee. All other important sites are to be found in the vicinity, thematic no less than topographical, of these places. In other words, the expectations of a pilgrim group are clearly defined and therefore easier to fulfill than those of other tourism sectors. Second, as we speak about expectations. A pilgrimage is primarily about mystical or magical religious experience, a moment in which the seeker experiences something that transcends his everyday life and could even pave the way to a holy state, a Damascus moment, an inner conversion and transformation, insight and profound understanding, an encounter that changes one's frames of consciousness and life. It is just as unlikely that the contemporary pilgrim would use traditional, even religious vocabulary, as it is that such a search would be limited to the interior of a church. The third point is sacred landscape. Unlike isolated church buildings, designated pilgrimage sites, the Holy Land has the decisive advantage of being in its entirety a sacred landscape through which the pilgrim steadily moves. While Nazareth and the Mount of Beatitudes, for instance, encapsulate the memory of Jesus, the route between these two places is redolent of his disciples as well as of his preaching and miracle working in the region. In a figurative sense, each speck of dust in the Galilee could have been seen by Jesus himself. Not merely a point in the landscape, but the entire landscape of the Holy Land breathes transcendence. This is why the external trappings of a holy site, including the pilgrim hostel, amount to decisive criteria in its perception. The more centrally located a pilgrim hostel is, the closer to a biblical memory, the better. The quantity determines the quality. The more pilgrimage destinations in its vicinity, the more attractive a hostel becomes for the pilgrim planning a trip. The more a visitor engages with these places and appropriates them existentially through reading and prayer, the more the hostel also participates in this identification process. It itself becomes part of the narrative of the Holy City. Even if it is primarily responsible for providing accommodation and food, we are well aware of this and we are trying to do our best, its location in the sacred landscape lends it to a religious aura that a pilgrim can rightly expect it to serve. In the ideal case, pilgrims are not interested in undertaking the most extensive program in the shortest time possible, but rather in being able to personally explore the selected holy sites. This requires time to settle in. At the hostels, we are operating. Anyone who wants to walk in the footsteps of Jesus and to grow in their own spirituality needs leisure time and opportunities to retreat. What exactly are the characteristics now of a pilgrim's hospice? First, a pilgrim hospice is to be found in the immediate vicinity of a place of longing. The more significant the place, the more important the hostel. We are all located in Jerusalem, in the city of Jesus and the Holy Land. Jesus' person cannot be surpassed by any other saint or place, not even Rome. This is the origin, the very beginning we are talking about. Our guests are looking to find the sources of scripture and revelation. Second, a pilgrim hospice warmly welcomes all travelers. Welcoming groups personally, meeting guests during the day and giving them information in the evening gives a special charm and makes our guests feel valued and appreciated. In our specific case, pilgrims from Austria and other countries should feel at home and connected in a spiritual sense. This homely character is created by the interior, the style in which the rooms and the public areas are furnished, and by our Viennese cafeterias. These may seem superficial, but in fact it is precisely this familiar context that provides the social glue that connects our visitors and allows for honest and meaningful encounters to take place. Undoubtedly, pilgrims want clean rooms and friendly, helpful, and trustworthy staff. Particular consideration should be given to rooms for group meetings and structural accommodations for people with disabilities. Christian hospices are expected to employ Christian staff and be able to provide information about religious offerings in the city and in the entire country. Third, a pilgrim hospice provides the amenities that fortifies guests and enables them to resume their pilgrimage feeling refreshed. From a gastronomic point of view, as well as in terms of the state-of-the-art hospitality offered. In practice, this also means taking the target group seriously in terms of its age structure in two respects: barrier-free passage within the house and on the premises must be ensured, as well as safety requirements that often appears more pronounced in our region. Statistical evaluations show that around 40% of pilgrims coming to the Holy Land are over 55 years old. These people have already achieved goals in their lives and want to see appropriate quality and performance for their money. This is not to say that pilgrimage tourism is exclusively the realm of the affluent. There is also a significant low-budget market sector as well. Since I'm not a Jesuit, there's a fourth point. But I'm coming to the end. A pilgrim hospice is characterized by a spiritual atmosphere. The regular liturgy offered to guests and employees is a crucial feature of a pilgrim hostel. It includes spiritual direction and the possibility for spiritual care. Crucifixes in the guest rooms, a copy of the Holy Scriptures in the drawer, religious images in the public areas and spaces of such a place are definitely required. More than 70% of pilgrims in total come to the Holy Land only once in their lives. They are looking for an extraordinary spiritual experience that they then seek to share with others throughout their lives. Even if most of these guests, of people coming to our places, do not become regulars, the vast majority don't see them anytime again, we have to take special care of them. They are the ones who talk enthusiastically about their trip once they are back home and recommend us to others, to future pilgrim groups. Thank you very much for your attention. This is kind of an open end because we are moving on to our panel discussion, which is led by Georg Röwekamp from Tatka.
Yeah, thank you.
I was asked to lead this panel discussion, but of course we know you, the 20th anniversary of your arrival in Jerusalem, is the reason for this meeting.
Thank you very much. My name is Trudy Dabuz. I'm a sister of Notre Dame de Sion, and I'm more or less a neighbour. I live at Eche Homo and have been there for about 27 years now. I'm originally born in Holland, but as a child migrated to Australia, so English is more my language rather than Dutch. And I was called by the congregation to come here 27 or more years ago, and for a few years, but I'm still here. I commenced here as the director of Eche Homo, and then in 2006, as our congregation is one of the traditional congregations, and as many of you would know, aging, we asked if the community of Chemin Neuf, and Claire is here today, would join us in collaboration. And so they are responsible actually for the guest house, but there are other sections of our institute. We have a holy site. We are one of the 10 holy sites in Jerusalem, the Lithostrotos, the place where tradition says Jesus was condemned to death. And Pilate said in chapter 19 of St. John's Gospel, "Behold a man." And that's why we have the name Eche Homo. So that's one of the significant parts of our house. And then, of course, the Pilgrim House. As well as that, we offer a biblical program for people to come and study the Bible in the land and its people.
Thank you, Sister Trudy. Sister Daniela, would you like to continue and present yourself, introduce yourself and your institution?
My name is Sister Daniela Gabor. I'm born in Romania. Since 1992, I belong to the German sisters in the German colony. We are the Sisters of St. Charles Borromeo. Since more than 30 years being here in the Holy Land, I'm really more than happy to have the experience being here, also the experience guiding our guests when they have questions and being with them.
Thank you. And Michael Moorman.
My name is Michael Moorman. I'm 9 years in Jerusalem. I run the Johanniter Hospice. This is the German hospice. We are closest to the Holy Sepulchre, very close. And we have a very small host, only 16 beds. Most of our guests are Lutheran, Protestant, or Free Church. We are a German-speaking Protestant house, long tradition, and these days mostly, yes, visited by many people, mostly German-speaking people, individual travelers, and small groups as well.
Thank you. Yeah, Father Markus touched a lot of points during his speech, the problem of tourism, pilgrimage. We want now try to focus on what this all means for Christian guest houses. And so I would like to start with you, Sister Daniela. Do you know this issue, the differences between tourists and pilgrims, the different needs of the guests coming to your house, and how do you deal with that?
The topic is particularly interesting for us as a Pilger-House, although the difference between pilgrims and tourists is not always immediately apparent. Two areas of interest merge into one another, the religious and the secular need to experience and deepen something. And then, of course, there are the extreme cases. On one hand, total religious enthusiasm that goes to extremes, and on the other hand, the desire to see as much as possible in a tourist way and as cheaply as possible with all the given possibilities.
And how do you deal with this, especially as sisters?
We have our motto of our house: peace to those who come, joy to those who stay, blessing to those who go.
Could you explain this, what this means in practice?
Peace to those who come. Every guest is welcome, regardless of their denomination, nationality, or skin color. This is the basic principle of many cultures. Hospitality is something sacred. It means respect and acceptance of the respective personalities, however different they may be. That is, we not only open our doors, but also our hearts to those we meet. Joy to those who stay. We do everything we can to make our guests feel at home. We do not see each individual just as a number, but as a person with a personal name and value. We do everything within our limits and possibilities to make each individual aware. Guests' expectations are certainly different today than they were 20, 30 years ago. On the one hand, we can offer a beautiful old building that is a listed building under a preservation department. But on the other hand, a modern infrastructure with modern communication options is also expected of us. However, it is important to us that the Christian spirit of the Pilger-House always remains tangible and is not sacrificed to a modern, superficial need of entertainment. Blessings to those who live. We are aware that we cannot fundamentally change people through their stay in our community, nor do we want to do this. We don't want to convert, but if we succeed in giving our guests some peace, time or place of contemplation, and a positive attitude of life, then we have already achieved a lot.
Thank you very much. Sister Trudy, I think your attitude as sisters from your order or from the Chemin Neuf is not too different from what Sister Daniela told us. But one specific thing with your guest house is, as you mentioned, is that it's combined with the holy place. And that this, and as we heard from Father Markus, this closeness to the holy places has some influence on your place. And he said that it is an advantage the closer a guest house is to the holy places. But do you feel that always? Is it really an advantage, or would you sometimes love to have a place like Sister Daniela in the wonderful German colony to be a little more far away from the crowds and from the holy sites?
Yes, we also have the privilege and I guess the goodness to own our property in Einkara, where we have much more peace, beautiful gardens. But I have to say that my heart is here. It's true, I agree with Father Markus, that people do appreciate being close to the holy sites. I mean, we might have one, but there are so many within walking distance and everything else. And at the same time, being on the Via Dolorosa, it is extremely difficult for people to arrive, for people, especially during difficult times where you have to walk with your luggage and all the rest of it. So it's very inconvenient, but at the same time, I would say that the people who come to Ecce Homo, it's a simple guest house insofar as it's there since 1856. Sure, some of the bedrooms, most of the bedrooms have been renovated. There are suites, even if they're small. But the big attraction is also our terraces, which are quite expansive. And as we have good weather, a good part of the year, that does provide opportunity, not only socially, but early in the morning, you find people there to pray, to journal. Often we find people there journaling. And as Father Markus said, people are looking for some spiritual experience. And for groups who come, even though they're out all day and exhausted, at night they want to either pray in our church, Basilica, or we have a big room where they can share and continue the reflection that they've had during the day. So providing the spaces that Father Markus said where people can pray and where they can share and discuss is extremely important for the pilgrims that we have. As I said, simple, looking for a simple accommodation, but it has to be clean and provide what people need. And as Sister Daniela said, maybe their needs are the same, but my experience is that what people wanted 27 years ago or were happy with, they're a little more demanding today. But that would basically be what we focus on. And then the welcome. It's extremely, extremely important that everyone's welcome, Jew, Muslim, Christian, but we would have rarely a Jewish person, and if they are, they would be very liberal. and that people really relate and that we model that.
Thank you. From all of you, it was mentioned the spiritual atmosphere or the Christian spiritual character of a place. From what it consists, the spiritual atmosphere or the spiritual character of a house, and how do you try to preserve it?
Well, I think crucial for all of these places is that in our house we first of all have a chapel in the midst, and we show people the chapel to attend morning prayers, and it's amazing. If I would go on travel, I would not consider going to morning prayers every day. But in our house, even though we have sometimes more tourist people like pilgrim, our experience is that 90% attend a morning prayer. Because you can't come close to a holy place and then not be touched or search in some way. And that's what we experience. So I think crucial for a pilgrim house is that it is in its core a place of faith, lived out faith and of prayer. And people experience that and feel it. When they come in, they feel like the hospitality. And as you shared, it's a hospitality out of Christian motivation, receiving Christ in the guest. So the people come in and feel it, and in our house they mostly call it an oasis because it's quiet in the old city. We have the benefit of our surrounding that is not really inviting, but once they enter and come to the place and they see the beauty, and I think that is the third. Christian pilgrim houses should have some character that is like this house here. It has a beautiful garden. It has a place where you feel welcome, where you can pray, offers a chapel, and then you have people around you can talk to. Our benefit is that we only have 16 guests, so it's a small and very personal house. And that means me and my wife, we attend breakfast with the guests every morning. When I've been in your guest house, you did it the same with the brothers. They pass by in the evening meal and are available and share. And so we are available in the morning at breakfast. And that is the place where people start asking. And they ask about Judaism, they ask about Islam, and specifically they ask about the very different Christian denominations they never encountered before. And I think that is also one of the greatest benefits. Like this morning, the celebrations in the Holy Sepulchre were spectacular, and all the Christian denominations celebrating, and the Orthodox celebrating Palm Sunday. So we invited people to come along and explain and feel the atmosphere and get spiritual. So I think spirituality of a Christian pilgrim house is created by a surrounding, by people who live it, and by a prayer, house of prayer.
Did I understand you well that you said sometimes it happens that who arrives as a tourist leaves somehow as a pilgrim?
Well, yeah. I mean, most of the people who come to our place are pilgrim, but not pilgrim groups. We mostly have people who have been here with a group and then travel individually, and they come to our place mostly. But some of them are just traveling and want to see Tel Aviv and Jerusalem and whatever, and are not tourist-like. But yes, I would describe it. This is why we love to run the place, because you can't come here to Jerusalem not getting touched with the holy, with religion, and you start to ask. And so we don't preach, but we are available. We share if people are gonna ask us, and mostly people ask and are transformed. Really go back differently and come back. So we have a lot of people who come back and have regular people who are not coming once a year, well, once in his lifetime, but several times.
But that would mean that the director or the directors responsible in the guest houses somehow also or should be spiritual guides, or to use the old word mystagogue, to lead somebody into the mysteries of the city?
I know, and not everybody is able to do it in a large guest house. You can be close to all of your guests like we do. But yeah, I think it's a benefit if someone is available. If you can find people, or if you people pass by in the evening meal like you do it in your guest house in Tiberias, that someone is passing by, and if you have questions, you can ask him, and there is an offer to be available to share or get your questions to ask.
You mentioned also the fact that your guest house is seen by many guests as an oasis, and I think this is similar for all of our guest houses. Here in the Austrian hospice, and you touched this point as well, it comes to this that it is not only some oasis, but an Austrian oasis. And me, myself, in Tabra, I have also the experience just now during Pesach that Jewish guests come and say, oh, it's like a short vacation in Europe to come to your house because it is not so local. But there raises a question for me. Is it really good, or do we really enable our guests to make a real pilgrimage when we receive them in an environment which is so close to their home? Of course, many of them like it, but in the beginning, pilgrimage, peregrinatio, what meant to be a stranger, to be far from home, to experience a different world. And this is combined, I think, with the demand of the local Christians that we should not only, or the pilgrims should not only visit the holy sites and then go back to their guest house, but to meet them, the multi-coated living stones. So is that what we offer? We all offer the oasis, the home-style oasis. Is this really fitting with the original idea of pilgrimage?
Yeah, first of all, I would say an oasis is just for those people not supposed to be working within such a place. It's easier to look at it from outside and to see this oasis with the garden and the walls surrounding it, a little bit cut off of everything, which is like the old city of Jerusalem. In former days, when pilgrims used to come on foot, it took much longer than the 3 hours, 4 hours it now takes taking a plane. And you are here. So you had a long way to go and a long time in which you actually could get used to the differences in culture, in the landscape, in the food you are getting. So it was a different experience in former times. Nowadays, you buy a ticket, you arrive here, and all of a sudden you find yourself within the Orient, within the old city of Jerusalem, with all its beauty and with all its troubles. And in my opinion, people, especially coming the first time to this place, they're kind of plunging into this new experience, into this context. They are overwhelmed by different things, not just religious aspects, but also political aspects, obviously. And they need, at the end of the day, they need some place where they can actually sit down quietly, not being approached by somebody who wants to sell them something, but not to, let's say, bargain the price of a coffee, which is quite clear on our menu. I never said that we are cheap, but we are at the pilgrimage side, of course. So we have to take this into account as well. But what we actually do see is that people appreciate this kind of Heimat, at least for a certain moment, a certain time, in the end of the day, which was very rich in different ways, and then you're getting some, let's say, delights you know from at home, and then you start in the next day. There is actually a difference. If there's a pilgrim group coming directly from the airport, we usually serve them hummus, pizza, and falafel, and they love it. But if this pilgrim group, the very same pilgrim group, is going first to the north, to the Galilee, and after 3 or 4 days coming to Jerusalem, they appreciate a schnitzel rather than hummus and falafel. Because after some time, they have enough from the Orient, because for many of them it's simply too much in a too short period of time. And that's where this oasis is coming into the picture, and when it makes sense. But on the other hand, I absolutely agree, it makes me a little bit nervous, and I'm even probably, well, not quite understanding such things. Pilgrim groups staying in-house at our hospice, asking me to make a reservation in our house chapel. Okay, we are offering daily liturgy, religious services. Of course, the chapel stays open 24 hours, 7 days a week, and everybody is welcome to sit there and to pray. It's a house chapel, it's not a religious and holy site, okay? It's not a holy place. So for God's sake, you're coming here to see the holy sites. Yeah? Don't waste your time in my chapel, okay? Get out of here and see the places and get in touch with local people. So there's always this mixture. We have to do something, we have to offer something, we have to have all these special areas and places which are by definition religiously defined, but on the other hand we have to motivate them to move to the holy sites and to get in touch, as our patriarch always used to say, with the living stones of the Holy Land. We are all more or less foreigners in this country, and we will stay foreigners till the very last day. We are serving in our institutions here, but we are doing this service first of all because we want to bring people to the holy sites, but we are also doing it in the service of the Holy Land, which means it's people. And here, regardless of faith and denominations.
Do you agree on that, or would you like to comment?
I agree with much of what you said. When I think of our place, I think we say more that we're a safe place. It's just that when people go past that place, you just see a door and you have no idea that when you go in, it's quite big. And it's also difficult to move around because we've got so many levels that I think when finally we did get some plans a few years ago, it's something like 30. And so it's complex. But from the very beginning in 1856, when the sisters came and the brother of our founder, Alphonse, they had a school, but he was always keen that we have some pilgrims, and especially women, so that he could provide a safe place. So I think we use more a safe place. I said our terraces are great, but we don't have, well, we have this tiny little garden that built on a well that some of the sisters years ago said we've got no trees, we've got nothing, so they made a little garden, but the rest is all terraces, and they have the beauty in their own way and wonderful view. So for us it's a safe place that we encourage people, and the atmosphere is created by us in the welcome, in the readiness, like we've all said, to be able to speak with them, to be available, to give information, and I also love being in the dining room so that you can be having meals and talking to people. But so you can call it oasis, but we usually refer to it as a safe place.
Yeah, thank you. It was said that this panel discussion should not be too long, but before we come to the next part with the buffet, maybe after we spoke about more general things, everybody of you could share one memory, a meeting, an encounter with a pilgrim, which touched his heart, her heart, and shows us what is the specific thing with receiving guests in Christian guest houses. I think you have all so much experience with so many different guests, and of course many encounters you may have forgotten, but there might be a few which were showing you this is why I'm here, this is why it's good to direct a Christian guest house, because
Well, I'll try to start. I remember very well that once we had been called from a travel agency, that there is a lady in the hospital who was not our guest, but she was a stranger, she was a foreigner, she was from Germany, a lady about over 8 years, and she has got a hip exactly. And she was in the hospital. She should undergo an operation. She was alone. We said, it's not possible that we can not act, that we can be passive. We went to the hospital. We saw the lady. She was before entering the operation room. We asked, I had been with one of my sisters there, we asked the nurses to enter, to allow us to enter. We entered the hospital room, and we just told the lady, you are not alone. You are not alone. We are here with you. She underwent the operation. We visited her after that. She asked us, who are you? You gave us so much strength. You can't imagine. I had the feeling that it was like something sent, I don't know where from, to tell me the kind of our duty being here, showing our guests, not our guests, but those people who are asking for our help, to be present for them.
I can recall lots of stories. One story would be a female doctor, pretty sad, and because her job is so demanding in Germany, she was staying in our house, and then we took her to the Palm Sunday procession down the Mont of Olives, and she ended up walking with the Franciscans. And I saw her, and I couldn't believe, because she was kind of dancing like crazy with the Franciscans, who danced like crazy. And she came home, and I said, what happened to you? And she said, I can't tell, I never experienced, she was Protestant, she never had encounter with monks or brothers, but she was just like this joy entering the city with these monks who just celebrated. It stuck her heart so much, and I think this is kind of transformation that takes place when we come to our places. And sometimes it's not ourselves, sometimes it's also the others on the table, when you have people with a very special world view or Christian view, and then you have others at the table, like you have someone who never experienced Palestinian Christians, and then you have people from that side on the table, and they share about their life and their difficulties and their faith at table, and they go back and say, this is, you changed my worldview. It's not discussion, it's experience, it's sharing, and that makes the difference.
I'm trying to think of what to share, because there are so many things. But the one thing that I think I appreciate greatly is, and it's part of who we are as Sisters of Sign, that we feel we need to hold both peoples. And that can be extremely difficult at times, but it's essential. And the conversations, and there have been many over these years, when there's opportunity, and again, sitting at the table at breakfast or another meal, where you have people who are very strong in their views, either for one people or the other. And first and foremost, like we've already mentioned, it's important to listen. And so to really listen, and then slowly to be able to present the two sides by either stories of personal experience of friendships with Muslims, and friendships also with Israelis, and to give some examples. And the experiences I remember is several times individuals saying at the end, thank you for those conversations, because now I can go home and I won't be presenting just one side. I can really show that there is suffering and there's desires and longings on both sides. And so they are the experiences that I value greatly. But then there are many others where people really appreciate and say, I've been touched and I'll go home a different person.
I always remember an encounter which I will not easily forget, just probably after my first stroke in some time. And it's dating back to my time at the Mission Abbey, once I still have been a student. A young student born in a privileged and rich country, spoiled. I went into the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and I saw there an elderly man sitting on Calvary. I decided for myself, I did not speak to him, I did not open a conversation, I was just like watching and looking at him, and I decided for myself, he's coming from Ethiopia, an old man on his knees, kneeling in front of the cross. And I was sitting in a corner, trying to find some rest and some peace. And he was in front of my eyes somehow. And at a distance, some of his family members. And they were waiting for him, and they were waiting for him, and they were waiting. He did not finish his prayer, he just continued, and they were waiting for him. But this time was passing by, they got nervous a little bit, and they wanted him to encourage to leave. And I still did not talk to this person. I don't even know if he spoke English or any other language. I just made up my own little story, which goes as follows. This person put aside his lifelong, every penny he could afford, he did not need for his daily life, just to be able at one point, once in his lifetime, to come to Jerusalem, to this place, and to sit there and to pray. And of course, if it's just one lifetime experience, you don't want to leave. You sit there, no matter what somebody else is saying, even it might be your children who wants to move on to the next spot. You don't go, you don't leave. And it came to my mind, oh dear boy, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is on my way to my favorite supermarket. And I can pass by and drop by at any given moment I want to. We all do have the responsibility for the needy. And even we are publishing certain rates we are asking for our regular clients, we have to have open eyes for everybody inside the country and for those people coming to us in financial needs or in spiritual needs. And all of us are employing local people, Palestinians, Christians and Muslims. And some years ago we established a social fund, which is necessary because we are not another sector in tourism. We are not an ordinary hotel. We are church. We are religious people. We are clergy. And there must be something, an added value to all that. I did not study theology to become the director of a hotel. Others could do this better than I can. But okay, as time was passing by, I got used to it. But still, we are around, many of us, since 150 years. We did not choose these specific places. We had no clue which kind of difficulties we will find ourselves in after some time. But we have to do our job. And this includes not just praying for peace in the Holy Land, for all people living here, and then light candles and motivate people to pray. But we have to do something very concrete to enable people to stay and to remain and to have hope for the future, and hopefully soon a peaceful future.
Ja,
no better conclusion words I could find. Maybe you understood a little better or were reminded how important Christian guest houses could be in the Holy City of Jerusalem and elsewhere. It would be nice. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your service at Austrian Hospice. Thank you to all of you for your service in your institutions. And let's hope ad multos annos for all of us.
For leading this discussion. Thank you to all the panelists for sharing some insight into your experience. We heard, for example, some features that all of your houses have, which is the oasis, the place, the hospitality. And I would like to invite you now to enjoy the hospitality, to enjoy our garden oasis. We prepared some refreshments in front of the cafe and inside. Feel free and enjoy.
I did not plan this, but 4 weeks ago the President of the Austrian Parliament was in the country and paid us a visit, and he filled actually literally the last pages of our former guest books, which now is in our archives. So today with this event we actually open up with a new guest book, which is kind of an historical event. And if you want to make sure that our successors in 150 years to come will find your name on this very occasion in the guest book, make use of it. It's ready for you, waiting for you here in front of the chairs of our host. Those of you probably a little bit worried that taking the time to sign up here you might find less in the buffet. I can tell you, you have some time, there's enough on the buffet, and the guest book will stay here also later on for after the concert. So feel free to make your choice and to do whatever you want to do first. Thank you very much. We will try to stick to our time frame, which means at about 7:30, something like this, we would like to start with the concert a little bit later, probably, so that we can enjoy the time together, enjoy the food, having our conversations. Thank you very much for coming.